All right, for the second year of doing this, let's get into our power rankings for the 2024-25 season, starting off with the month of October. Now, for those who don't know, every single month last month, I think except for April, because I missed that because of the playoffs, but every single month that I've done a monthly power rankings at the end of each month, kind of tallying up teams' records, tallying up, their overall record if it's in a later month, and talking about how I thought the team did that month, while factoring that in with how they've been overall the whole season. It's a whole process, but overall, this is our October 2024 NHL Power Rankings for the 2024-25 season. So let's get straight into it. Starting off at number 32, and this will come as no surprise to anyone if you just follow the NHL. At number 32 is the San Jose Sharks with a 3-7-2 record. I honestly think that San Jose, they are in a spot where they're still not good. They got a lot of better players. I think their roster is definitely better than what it was, I would say, last year when they were really, really bad. I'm pretty sure they were 32 the entire season. So, again, when you look in terms of this team, they got better on paper. They got better when you actually watch them. But standings-wise, they aren't getting better. They're still losing games. They're still losing by a large margin. This team still isn't that good, and that's okay because they really have these cornerstones shaped up for the future. Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, Askarov. You have so many players that you have a really bright future for, and it's only going to get better from here. If you get the first overall pick again, this team is absolutely set for the future, and there is no doubt about it whatsoever. There's no debate. Simple as that. Now, number 31 is the same can be said for that team. It's the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks finished with a 3-7-1 record. Actually, the exact same as the Sharks, just one less game played. And I think that Chicago, again, they're still in no man's land. They are in, I would say, probably year 3 of this kind of tear-down rebuild they've been in. I think that, again, they're similar to San Jose in the fact that they got better on paper. They got better when you probably go out and watch them play. But standings-wise, they aren't getting better. They're still towards the bottom of the NHL, which is a complete good thing, not a bad thing whatsoever to say. And I think that you look at some of their wins they've had, I feel like some of their wins have been impressive. They beat Edmonton early on in the season. They put up a good performance against Colorado towards the end of the month. So they'll have wins here and there that look pretty good. But overall, it's been mostly just not so good. Besides Connor Bedard and a few other pieces of that team. But that's a good thing, again, because you want to build this team up and get those prospects and get better. I understand you want to see this team go back and win championships. So does every other team in the league. But you have to have a point in your time in your franchise where you have to rebuild, where you have to get better. And it's happened to every team. Look at Florida, look at Edmonton. It is very common amongst all teams. It's just how it is with the league. Anyways, moving on from that, to number 30, and this is where you start getting into the overreactions and surprises and all that. The Pittsburgh Penguins at number 30, they finished with a 4-7-1 record and are third last, the last team in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, for me with Pittsburgh, just seemingly from what I've seen, they score. They can score. They score, they play really well, but the goaltending and the defense has just heavily outweighed the positives on this roster. And I just think that until that changes, they won't be a playoff team. I saw so many people telling me that they are going to make the playoffs. They're going to prove me wrong. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Haven't seen that just yet. Haven't seen anything that really defines my opinion on this team. I still believe they aren't a cup contender, as many like to call them, or not cup contender, a playoff contender, as many like to call them. I just don't see it. Crosby's playing well, Malkin's playing well, but outside of that, you have a few depth pieces playing pretty well offensively, but on the defensive end of things, it looks brutal. Hopefully November's a better month for them. Otherwise, they're going to be in the Hagens conversation. And Hagens is the first overall pick, projected first overall pick. So people would love that, wouldn't they? Number 29, in a very surprising 3-6-1 record in October. It is the Nashville Predators. The Predators are another massive surprise because there were many people, including myself, who thought they were going to take another big step this year and be better out of the gate and have a really good start. And so far, it has not been that whatsoever. This team has just been absolutely terrible. Until the end of the month, they got really good at the end of the month and made themselves look better. Otherwise, they would have been even lower, believe it or not, on this list. But I just think that it's going to get better for them, but this is going to be the growing pains of that. And the way I see it is they're a very old team. Like, they're not a younger roster. They have young guys on their team, yes, but they're not really a young team per se. A lot of their core players are at least 27, 28, or even 30 years old. So, again, like, you got to look at it in that perspective. They might take a little bit to start up, but I think that overall Nashville's going to be a team that once they get going, they will get going. And they started winning some games too, and I think you just got to be satisfied with that, at least as of right now. Number 28, they are a surprising 4-6-1 record. Not really surprising, but I guess kind of. The Philadelphia Flyers. Again, the other Pennsylvania team, I would be shocked if I'm a Flyers fan. Because I knew we weren't going to be good, but I'm surprised that we started off this bad. Honestly, we usually start off pretty good. Again, just like the offense has dried up, seemingly. The goaltending just doesn't look like it's projected to be. The defense has been subpar. Again, like, there's a lot of things that you can really doubt. But again, with the Flyers, I look at them in the same way as the Sharks and the Blackhawks. It's a good thing they're bad. Because if they get, hypothetically, a top 5 or a first overall pick again, I do think that this team will be set. But again, it's October. It's overreaction time, is what we called it in our newest Nord Block Pod episode. But again, just when you look in terms of, it's a little surprising that they're this bad. That's all I'll say. Number 27, the Islanders, the New York Islanders, who are 3-5-2. A very, not surprising, but a very concerning start if you're an Islanders fan. You might actually be saying to me, Nordic, why are we so high? Because this team has just been horrendous scoring. They have been shut out 4 times, and they have only scored 3 goals in their 6 regulation losses. Now, I know that it says 5 on this thing that I'm saying, but there's a loss in November that's included in that stat. But again, 3 goals and 6 regulation losses is pretty horrendous. And being shut out 4 times in the month of October is crazy to think. So, again, there's a lot of concerns with New York. I think if this continues, we could see somebody get fired. Not saying it's Wah, not saying it's Lamoriello, but we could see somebody be to blame for this and get let go. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And again, we're going to really find out if it gets even worse in November. But yeah, we'll see what happens for the Islanders. Number 26 is the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens finished with a record of 4-6-1. I thought Montreal, even though they did finish off the month pretty badly with an 8-2 against Seattle and a few other losses that didn't look that great, I thought they played well considering the fact. I think a 4-6-1 record for a team like Montreal is something that you can be very happy about. And I just think that, you got to give it more time. Like, I've seen a lot of people overreact about how they've been so far to start this season. I don't think you can really do that just yet. So, again, I think that overall, you just got to give it some time, give it some time for these young guys to rebuild. Rome was not built in a day, and I know this is only year 3 or 4 of your rebuild. But again, you just need to give it some time and let these guys develop, let these guys get in there. Maybe we still see a coaching change, though, because it seems like the patience is run thin. But we'll see what happens there with Montreal. Number 25, they finished with a record of 4-6-1, the same as Montreal. It is the Boston Bruins. And the Bruins, you could even argue to be lower because of how surprisingly bad they've been to start the season. Not really bad, but kind of just like mediocre to start this season. And I would say that it's just been a overall pretty substantial disappointment. And I think that a lot of it may be because Swayman missed training camp, and it may be taking him a little bit to get adjusted. Now, again, he just had 2 back-to-back shutouts. Or sorry, him and Korpisalo both shared a shutout in a goalless weekend that they had. They didn't allow any goals. And I think that even though that's in November, like, you're seeing them start to come back. But again, I think this month of October has just been, not a good start for them, but I think they can come back. I definitely think they can. And again, all it takes is 2 wins and you're back up into the top 2 in the Atlantic. Like, that's just how close it is right now in that division. And it's how it's always been in that Atlantic division. So with Boston, the other concern that I would definitely have is that their goal scorers really haven't shown up. A lot of their guys are like Mark Kastelik, and Pastrnak obviously leads this team, but a lot of their other guys come from Kastelik, that fourth line. Pavel Zacha's really struggled. It's just been overall a rough campaign for the Bruins middle six, but we'll see where that transpires. We'll see if Boston can keep this up and pick it up, actually, I should say. But again, I think it's a little bit too early to kind of overreact about them. But again, there may be some people panicking out there. Number 24, they are with a record of 4-5-1. I have all the records written down on like one paper, so it's a little bit hard to kind of see all of them. But the Detroit Red Wings at number 24. I think Detroit, to be honest, they're one of those teams, and that's why they're kind of at the bottom of like the middle of the pack. And the middle of the pack for me is like 24 to 13. I would say for Detroit. I'm getting my Atlantic teams mixed up. I would say for Detroit that it's still too early to tell for me. It is. And I think that I need to wait a little bit longer to see what this goaltending is really about, what this defense is really about, if it's really going to be the killer or the savior of this team. I think it's leaning towards killer, but, we'll see what happens there. And that goaltending, again, I still need to kind of just figure out if I'm really sold on that just yet, because I don't know if I am, to be honest with you guys. I still don't know if I'm sold on Lyon as your starting guy, but we'll see. Again, there's a lot of time, and they're only a game below 500. I think that you just got to give them a little bit of patience and see how November plays out, because once we get through November, once we get to that December 1st mark, that is when I really know about what teams are exactly right now. So hopefully that will transpire, and we'll see the Red Wings maybe back in a playoff spot by then. But again, that Atlantic's competitive, so even at this point, every game counts. Number 23, same can go for this team as well, the Buffalo Sabres, who I just spoiled earlier on, but they're 4-5-1. The same record as Detroit. I think for Buffalo, they started off their season in the Global Series, dropped both of them. Then they went on to, I think, go like 0-4 or whatever, 0-3. And they ended up winning their next 4 and then started losing again. So you really, with Buffalo, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot on the line for this team right now. It seems like, they're really worried about potentially losing their GM. And there might be something else that happens there too. Again, when you're on a 13-year playoff drought, things like that will happen. But we're going to see what this Buffalo's team true colors really are. They just seem really streaky to start October. And again, streaky does not really get you into the playoffs that often. So they really need to have a good November if they want to get into the playoffs. And even on from that, a good December. And you need to win these games. You need these points. And if they can't do that, then say goodbye to this year as well, to be honest. Number 22 is the St. Louis Blues. The Blues went a 5-6 record. So St. Louis, I think, has been, again, they're pretty much 500. They've been pretty subpar. I like what I've seen from Holloway and Broberg. However, Broberg just came out as injured this past day, today. So, again, that's something that you're obviously very annoyed about if you're a Blues fan. But I've seen some positives. I've seen some negatives. They've already dealt with a lot of injuries. Again, Broberg, Robert Thomas is out. I think there's somebody else who's not in the lineup or has missed time besides Torrey Krug. But again, just it's seemingly like this team is kind of just in the middle. They look like they did a few years ago. But again, they're not starting off as bad as they have been in previous seasons. Like last year was a brutal start for them. They even fired Craig Berube right after a game. It was a crazy time. So we'll really see what St. Louis is in November. And again, this is an October tier list, or power rankings. I keep saying tier list, but when you look at a lot of these records, it's really only their starting record, and there's really only a few teams that you could be really concerned about, or a few teams that you're like, they're good. It's a big surprise. So I usually wait till the end of November where I have my big thoughts, but Overall, this is a way too early overreaction power rankings, to be honest. But St. Louis at number 22, I think is fine. Number 21 with a 4-4-2 record is the Anaheim Ducks. I think Anaheim's been good this year. There have been points where I have seen them play really weak, and I've just seen them play really lazy, but they're winning games at points. I really do think that Lucas Dostal's been a big part in that. They've been outshot heavily in some of these games too, and I just think that a big part in why they have 4 wins in the month of October is because of Dostal. Like, he has been lights out for them. He has been terrific. There's even been some people arguing that he may be a top 10 goalie in the NHL. I don't know if I buy into that just yet, but you could really get there. You could really make an argument if this keeps happening. So I like what I'm seeing there from Anaheim. I don't know yet if they're going to be a legitimate playoff team or, another bad team. I'm leaning towards probably another bad team this year. But again, if they're better, I think that's a good thing, just to be honest with you. Number 20, with a record of 5-5-1, is the Seattle Kraken. I think the Kraken are another team that has been pretty meh. They actually started off not too bad, but now it's kind of teetered off a little bit. So I don't really know what to expect from Seattle. They're 500. We got to wait through November. They're another team where, I just need to see it through. I've liked a few of their guys on their team, how they've played, but they're already going through some injuries. Losing Vince Dunn is a rough go, and I just think that, they're already starting off, they're 500, yes, but they're already starting off with some pretty rough injuries and some pretty rough news. But again, it's early, and we'll see where it goes from here, but again, if you're a Kraken fan, you got to be thinking, it'd be nice to have Dunn, for sure, and some of those other guys. Number 19, they are definitely higher than they were at this point last year, but they have a record of 5-5-1, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. So the Oilers started off rough. They did. They lost, I think, their first game. They lost their second game. They lost their third game. I think they won their fourth. But again, they started off the season, again, as they did last year, a pretty rough start. And I think they really picked it up better than they did last year, definitely towards the end. Because they were 500 in October. I think last year they were 1-7. So again, you just got to look at that and be yeah, that's a good thing to be happy about at least. At least they look somewhat better. And I think there's still some issues and some flaws there in Edmonton that need to be figured out. And of course, the injury of McDavid does not help. Neither does my English. But obviously, the injury of McDavid does not help. But I think, again, you've seen Draisaitl play really well without him, weirdly. And I just think that they'll be okay. They will be okay. And this is a way too early reaction. I think, again, you saw them climb up as they did last season. So hopefully they will do that again this coming season. But we'll see. Number 18, you're going to be surprised about this, Oilers fans, but your rival, the Calgary Flames, are above you. The Flames went 5-4-1 to start this season, which is a big surprise. And that's why they're up so high, because I figured Calgary was going to be bottom 5, or at least bottom 10 to start this season. But again, they've just started off pretty good. They've won a couple of games in a row. They've beaten a couple of teams that have come to their home and have gone on those road trips and have won those as well. They just look good right now. And it's really strange to think. And I think they still have a 500 record. I think they're still in a playoff spot right now. It's just really kind of mind-blowing to me that they are playing so well right now. And again, it's early. Do I think this lasts? No. But I think that overall, if you're a Flames fan, this is going to be a rough season. Seeing your team start off good has got to be good news for you. It just has to be. So you got to be happy with that if you're a Calgary fan. I don't think this continues, but I've been wrong before. We'll see. Next up then at number 17, and we are now halfway through this power ranking, we have the Colorado Avalanche, who the Avalanche finished with a 5-6 record. So the same as St. Louis, but why do I have them above St. Louis? Because they are injured to hell right now. They are so unbelievably injury prone, and their injured list has skyrocketed. They're already missing 2 of their really good players in Nichushkin and Landeskog. And again, I know they've been missing those guys for a while, but you lose Lehkonen, you lose Wood, you lose Colton, you lose this, you lose that. You just have so many injuries, not even really on the defensive core, on that forward core, that have really killed this team. And then additionally, too, Georgiev has not looked good. They started off like 0-4, 0-5, and they came back and fought their way to a 5-6 record in October, even with all those injuries. I think it's fair that you keep them in at least the middle of the pack. So I think that's completely fine. Again, if I see this continue in November, I will factor injuries in, but again, you got to factor it into a point where, every team has injuries, but again, it's early. So we'll see where Colorado goes from here, but I think they will get better. Without a doubt, they will get better. Number 16, so moving into the top 16. Believe it or not, we have a big surprise here at 16. It is the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets with a 5-3-1 record to start this season and in the month of October. That is just simply unbelievable. And I think that for a team that has gone through so much, dealing with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau, dealing with the injuries that they've always been dealing with how bad they've been for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years at this point. It's been a pretty long time. I would say that starting off your season good has to be good news. And it has to be something that you can at least be a little bit happy about. And maybe it continues. Maybe this team, with how they're playing, gets into the playoffs. Now, again, I think November is going to be a real wake-up call for these teams that, are kind of starting off hot but aren't really projected to be that good, like Calgary and Columbus and a few other teams that are notably high on this. But again, I believe that seeing them start off good has got to make some people happy. It's got to make a lot of people happy, actually. Number 15 is the Utah Hockey Club with a 5-4-2 record. And I just think that Utah has just looked terrific. They have looked so good. Again, I know a 5-4-2 record is not that great, but just I think overall they're playing a lot better than they did last year. It seems like there's been a weight lifted off these kids' shoulders. And I think that they've just played overall really good. And again, you start off your season 3 or 4-0. That's great to see. You do go on a losing streak. But again, every team's going to go on a losing streak. Every team's going to get pounded at some point. And I think that for Utah, they're a young team. They're going to take a little bit to adjust. I don't think they make the playoffs just yet. But I think seeing them start off like this has got to make some people happy. And has got to make some people cheering for them. Maybe even the Coyotes fans who didn't want to see them leave, including myself. Anyways, number 14 with a record of 5-4 is the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa's looked good. I think they had a couple shutouts this season. So far in October, they've had a few pretty good performances that I thought, were good. They also had 2 8-goal games where their team scored 8 goals. That one against St. Louis and that one against LA were the 2 most notable ones. A few other ones that have been blowouts too. I just think that you got to wait till November. November is the really big telling point for what this Senators team is, because what's been really notable is that they will just always crumble in the month of November, and I think that that's what's really killed this team in previous seasons. But if they can really have a solid November, not even a bad November, not even a bad November, but overall just a 500 November. I think you take that and you're happy with it and you have a good December then. I think that's good. And I just think that if Ottawa can do that, I think they will 100% without a doubt get into the playoffs. And I think that is something that people want to hear. 100% if you're a Sens fan. Number 13. So I would say now we're out of the middle of the pack. We're into the teams that really should not surprise anyone that they're up here. The Vancouver Canucks are the first one. Vancouver with a 4-2-3 record. Now, there are some concerns that I do have with the Canucks. A, that goaltending. B, Elias Pettersson. C, some of that offensive depth. But I think that overall, you got to say that they've had a solid month. I think that you look in terms of what this team wanted to become, what this team has offensively. I think they are still a good team. I think that November may be very telling, though, of what this team is really like. And if they are going to be good this year, or they're going to really need Demko to be good this year. So, we'll see. But again, I think Lankinen's played all right so far. Seelovs has not looked that good. But overall, we just got to, time will tell with the Canucks. We'll see what happens. Number 12, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are, with a record of 6-4-1, have been really high and really low at points this season. So I just think that with Toronto, like, you see how they played against Tampa? They played incredible. Like, just one of the best games I've seen from them in a very long time. And then they go and just drop a bomb in Columbus. They lose like 6-2 or something. Then they lose to St. Louis. And it just, like, it seems like, the ceiling is terrific, but the floor is really low. I know it should be higher, but, like, regardless, it just seems like this team has like a really big gap between how good they can be and how bad they can be. And it's been like that for years. And I think that's something with Craig Berube's system and that Craig Berube can definitely fix. But again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, November's a really telling month. If there's a few teams that are up towards the top that have a really bad month, and there's some teams towards the bottom that have a really good month, it could completely sway the standings. It could. And again, like, we're early enough in the season where a team that is completely at the bottom of these power rankings could rise up to the top of these power rankings within a week or two. That's just how much it takes. Number 11, just outside of the top 10, is the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings finished with a record of 6-3-2. Could not find them for a second. LA's looked all right so far, but there's a couple losses that have just really struck out to me. A few losses that I think that you got to be a little bit concerned about. Those losses to Vegas. Oh no, Vegas is a good team. You should be winning some of those games at the very least. That loss against San Jose at the end of the month was a little bit concerning. I just think that with LA, there's some issues that need to be fixed, but I think that they're still a pretty good team. I think they still make the playoffs. I think they still probably get in on either third in that Pacific or a wild card spot. It's just a matter of if Edmonton can catch up. Again, they are pretty further back down in the standings and in these power rankings too. But if Edmonton can catch up, I think that LA might be battling for a spot there with like Seattle or even Vegas, to be honest. So we'll see where that goes. Number 10, moving into the top 10 now, we have the Vegas Golden Knights, speaking of which, with a 7-3-1 record to start the month. I would say that Vegas has surprised me, mainly that goaltending. Hill has looked all right. Samsonov is what's been really impressed me. Samsonov has looked just lights out. Not gonna lie, I think he's like a .93 or something like that. Like, that's pretty good for somebody like Samsonov, who was horrendous last year in Toronto. So it's good to see somebody like him playing that well. But again, it's early. November is going to be really telling. But I think Vegas, if they can really stay healthy, they look like that cup contender team that can win. So I could definitely see them winning another Stanley Cup. But again, it's October, so you just got to be a little bit quiet. But again, let's look at number 9 now, starting off with the New Jersey Devils. Devils a little bit lower than I would have liked to put them, but they're 7-4-2 to start this season. I think that they would definitely be higher if they didn't have some pretty concerning losses, like the loss to Detroit. The loss to the Lightning was very concerning. I think the goaltending has been better, but I just need to see more out of some of the players on this roster. I think that Jack Hughes has looked incredible to start the year. A lot of the players have on this team, but again, you need to start winning some more games. And I think that they're tied for 4th in the Metro right now. I'm losing it. But again, we're going to really see where this team's at. But I think they're a good team. There's no doubt about that. You just got to see where this goes. Number 8, and I know I'm saying that about every team, but number 8, just above them is the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are 7-3. Pretty surprising 7-3, I would say, to start the season. I didn't think Tampa would be this good. Just being openly honest, I didn't think Tampa would be as good as they are to start this season. I think Gensel's looked good for them to start. Kucherov and Hedman and Hagel have all looked really good. I just think that this team, we really looked at this team with them losing Stamkos and losing Sergachev, and we thought that, they're going to miss the playoffs. They're not that bad of a team still, even though they don't have a lot of great offensive depth. There's a few guys that are scoring from them, though. And I just think that, they look a lot better without Stamkos. That's kind of a weird thing to say. You see Stamkos struggling in Nashville, and you see Tampa doing so well, it kind of makes you think maybe Tampa knew something we didn't. Not saying they did, but, pretty interesting thing to think about there. Number 7 is their rival, the Florida Panthers, who Florida finished with a I can't find them. 7-3-2 record to start this season. Florida's looked good. They've looked solid. There have been a few losses in there where I've been like, all right, come on, really? You should be beating this team. You should be winning these games. But I think overall what we really got to factor in is their injuries. They've been hurt a lot this season, and I think with losing Barkov and Tkachuk, the two most notable guys, like, come on, you're going to struggle a little bit. But they were still really good. They won both games in the Global Series. Like, they look like a legitimate cup contender. Like, they literally look like they could win another Stanley Cup. And that's crazy to say for me. So, yeah, we'll see where Florida is next month. Because, again, November is really a telling month, as I've said many times. And I'll say it again, probably in the next couple of teams. But Florida to start the year looks just really good. Number 6 is the Dallas Stars, the team they beat, ironically enough, in the Global Series, but the Global Series does not count in this, so don't come at me. The Stars are 7-2 to start the season. I think that's a pretty good start for them. Again, they're firing on all cylinders. Their young guys look good. Their old guys look good. Just everything that needs to go right is going good so far for Dallas. So I think that there's really not much to say. Like, they just look good. I mean, that's really not a surprise. Same with number 5. Kind of a surprise. The Carolina Hurricanes are better than I expected them to be to start the season. I figured they'd start off a little bit slow with them losing a lot of their players they lost last year. But the Hurricanes, with a 7-2 record as well, look good. Again, what really struck out is that Oilers game in overtime where they came back. I thought that was a really good game. I think they've beaten a lot of good teams as well. And I just think that with how they've played so far, as a Hurricanes fan who was, some of you may have been upset with their moves, you just got to be a little bit satisfied with what they've done so far. So Carolina at number 5 is the correct ranking for me. Number 4 is the New York Rangers. The Rangers have a record of 6-2-1, so a little bit, worse than the other teams, but I think the Rangers have still played like the Rangers, like they should be. So nothing else to really be mad about there. They extended Lafreniere. Shesterkin's playing really good. Even though they are letting up like 40 shots a game every game, I think that Shesterkin's playing good enough for them to justify that, I guess. So overall, I got to be happy about that. Number 3, and this is where we get into the top 3, and it's actually a pretty surprising top 3. So I have the Washington Capitals at number 3. The Capitals finished with a record of 7-2-1. I just think Washington has been simply awesome. They have been. And I think that with the Capitals, it's remarkable how they're playing. It's simply remarkable. I'm going to make a video either tomorrow or Wednesday, sometime this week, talking about them. It has just been remarkable how they've played. It's been awesome how they've just come out and have played so well. Like, their goaltending doesn't even look that good either, and they're still winning games. Like, all 4 of their lines look really good. Their blue line looks really good. Ovechkin's scoring. He might break the damn goal record this year. That's a video that's coming out soon, too. Like, he might break the damn record this year. It's wild. It is unreal to think. So, we'll really see where Washington goes because it's early. And I think, again, the month of November might be really telling, and I know I've said that like 80 times, but that might be a month where we see Washington kind of fall off a little bit, and maybe the start was just a little bit of a hot start. But again, we're going to see if that continues or not, but I really like the Capitals. I really do. I really like how they've played so far. Number 2, another team that I really liked how they played so far is the Minnesota Wild. The Wild are another really just impressive team. They are 6-1-2. They only have 1 regulation loss. And what's really remarkable is that in most of their games, they have not trailed at all. I think there's only been a couple of games in there where they have trailed. I remember they went their first 6 or 7 games without trailing, which is pretty insane when you think about it. So overall, for Minnesota, just how they've started is crazy. Kaprizov looking like a Hart candidate right now, which is also pretty wild to say. So overall, I'm really impressed with what the Minnesota Wild have done, and I think that that's going to continue, and I think that they're going to be great. They are, and I think that starting off really good is something that they needed because last year they started off so rough, and there was actually a video, I think there's a video out on this channel, talking about how good the Minnesota Wild have been. I might have had to scrap that one. I'm not sure. I might be lying to you guys. But regardless, I just think that this team has looked awesome. Simply awesome. And finally, at number 1, I could just not put them here. They only lost one game this month. It's the Winnipeg Jets. They are 9-1 to start the season. They are 11-1 right now. They went 8-0. They lost their second to last game of the month. And you would think that maybe with losing a game, they would kind of tamper off a little bit and maybe not be so good to end off the month or start November. They haven't. They still look really good. And I think that I just can't not put them at number 1 right now. Like, they started off terrific. Now, Kyle Connor looks like a Hart candidate right now. He has, I think, points in almost every single one of their games so far. So, just how he's played has been just spectacular. And I think that him and Kaprizov, again, I made a video on my TikTok page about how I think Kaprizov and Connor could be Hart candidates out of October right now. And I just think that right now, you have to be really happy as a Wild fan with what they've done so far. So, yeah, a Jets fan is what they've done so far. I don't think Jets fans are going to be happy to hear me say that. But it's pretty crazy to think that the top 3 is the Jets, the Wild, and the Capitals. 2 of those teams got bounced in the first round. One of those teams didn't even make the playoffs last year. So it's pretty wild to think that I'm saying those things. But regardless, that will do it for our October 2024 Power Rankings. A good 36-minute video for you guys to yell at me about. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe down below if you are new and you liked the video. I would greatly appreciate that. And regardless, crazy one here for you guys. I'll see you guys in November. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.